AJB Live will begin momentarily. AJB Live will begin momentarily.
A major press conference in the case of the Menendez brothers. Prosecutors will announce whether they recommend resentencing for Erik and Lyle after the brothers spending nearly 35 years in prison for the murders of their parents in Beverly Hills. We have the press conference. The live feed is in from the Stream Center.
Live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida. Top stories, breaking news, interactive coverage in the palm of your hand. This is Hey JB Live. Here's JB Buono.
You know, the feed just came into the Stream Center. I'm looking at it here. You'll see it here in just a matter of seconds. And the room is jam-packed in California for this press conference that will ultimately determine whether or not prosecutors recommend resentencing for the Menendez brothers, a story that has really gained traction in the last several weeks, last several months, especially on social media. Welcome into the Stream Center, folks. JB here with you live. Let's show you that press conference room. And again, it's going to begin here at about 4:30 Eastern time. So that's about 6 minutes from now. We're going to be hearing from prosecutors on the recommendation that is going to be coming down and whether or not prosecutors recommend resentencing. They would still need court approval on this case, but this is believed to be a considerable pivot point as to whether or not the Menendez brothers will be granted the opportunity for getting released at some point in the future. Right now, they are in prison, the sentence being life in prison without the possibility of parole. The brothers were sentenced back in 1996 in L.A. County District Court. The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Erik, back in 1996, admitting that they fatally shot their entertainment executive father, Jose Menendez, and their mother, Kitty Menendez. The brothers said that they had feared that their parents were about to kill them to stop people from finding out that Jose had sexually abused Erik for many years. The brothers' family members have been calling for the release of Erik and Lyle, with this a report that we're going to air here before the press conference takes center stage here in just a moment.
Lyle and Erik have already paid a heavy price, discarded by a system that failed to recognize their pain.
30 family members on both Lyle and Erik Menendez's mother's and father's side held a press conference in front of downtown LA's criminal courts building, asking for the brothers to be released from prison.
When I think about the pain and suffering they endured, it breaks my heart to know that the system failed them so profoundly. They tried to protect themselves the only way they knew how.
Lyle and Erik have been behind bars for nearly 35 years after murdering their wealthy parents, Jose and Kitty, in 1989 inside the family's Beverly Hills mansion. They were sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
Like so many others, I struggled to process the events of that fateful August day and the loss that I felt. Over time, it became clear that there were two other victims on that day, my cousins Lyle and Erik.
The majority of the brothers' family members have always felt the brothers acted in self-defense after suffering a lifetime of sexual abuse and should have been found guilty of manslaughter and not murder.
Their father's abuse shattered their lives.
and the families' lives, and the courts failed them.
The brothers' attorneys filed a habeas petition last year based on new evidence supporting the brothers' claims of sexual abuse by their father. A letter Erik apparently wrote to a cousin before the killings about his father molesting him, and a declaration by a member of the boy band Menudo that Jose had raped him. Their attorneys also recently filed a resentencing petition based on new California law. It asked the courts to resentence them if they feel they've paid their debt to society and have been rehabilitated, which their attorney says they've demonstrated.
Create programs, counsel people, develop amazing programs, mentoring people, go to college, get degrees.
So that was a couple of weeks ago. There's a shot from that press conference. There has been significant momentum in calling for at least the opportunity to evaluate whether or not life in prison without parole is the appropriate sentence. It was the appropriate sentence based, of course, on the judge back in 1996. However, there has been conversations taking place really on network television, on talk shows, on podcasts, you name it, about whether or not in today's world, in 2024, whether or not a life in prison without the possibility of parole sentence for the Menendez brothers is appropriate, given, of course, they have been now in prison for nearly 35 years. Here in the Stream Center, we've got multiple feeds coming in. That's because of the magnitude of the press conference here. This shot from the corner shows just how many people are in attendance, and the back of the room, it is just all press, all cameras, and we have I think an even better shot that we're probably going to really hone in on here from the back of the room, centered up. We'll be able to see the LA County District Attorney making the announcement. The decision has been made, and the announcement is coming here shortly, as we understand it, in this press conference. Want to let you know here as well, folks, that we are running a poll. You can vote on the poll right now on heyjb.live. We're asking in the poll, and we bring up the poll question, do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? And we basically only have two options there. You see it at the bottom of your screen. Yes, the case should be heard. No, life without parole. We have 8 votes in total. And when the press conference is done, we'll come back. We'll look at the live results and see what people have to say out there. But let's bring in some audio and just kind of listen in here for what the room sounds like. I'm sure there's a lot of commotion because, of course, there's a lot of folks in the room, a lot of media, a lot of family members, the Menendez family seated there in the room as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what the reaction in the room is like when the prosecutors announce their decision. There is the attorney that we just heard from in the report. Let's go and listen in live. We'll kind of bring up audio full and just listen in. Again, this is from Los Angeles, California, folks. Again, we're running the poll on heyjb.live. It is a no sign-up, one-click poll where you can vote, do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? We'll be looking at the live results at the end of the press conference. Again, it's a no sign-up, one-tap, one-click poll. All you got to do is cast your vote over there, and we'll take a look. I'll tell you this. The results are coming in still early. I can see the results coming in. That's pretty one-sided, folks.
Test. 1, 2. Test. 1, 2. Okay. So make sure when it's time to.
Looks like some final preps for the press conference for those just tuning in on WFLA.com or heyjb.live or Facebook or YouTube. The press conference expected to begin here momentarily. We have multiple feeds here in the Stream Center, so if one happens to go down for whatever reason, we go to the backup feed. Again, right now, you can vote on heyjb.live. One tap, one click, no sign-up poll. We just want to hear from you. Do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? Head over there, tap on the poll, vote on either yes, the case should be heard, or no, continue with the previous sentence from the 90s of life without parole. And then come right back over here, and we're going to look at the results at the conclusion of the press conference once we find out what the L.A. County District Attorney's Office has determined for the Menendez brothers going forward. Again, really important to note that they can recommend resentencing, but it would go to the courts for approval. So this is considered to be a crucial recommendation for the Menendez brothers to get this recommendation. However, it will ultimately be up to the courts to decide whether or not resentencing is deemed to be appropriate, warranted, and whether or not it should be entertained in L.A. County. The Menendez brothers receiving a lot of attention as a result of documentaries and really the show that has come out on Netflix, Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story. Of course, a dramatization of their story and the brutal 1989 murders of their parents in Beverly Hills, California. There's also been multiple documentaries produced over the years about the Menendez brothers and all of the claims about what really happened inside the Menendez house. The Menendez brothers, they were tried twice, if you remember, for their parents' murders. The first trial ended in a hung jury. Prosecutors, at the time, in the 90s, they contended that there was no evidence of molestation and that many details in their story of sexual abuse were not permitted in the second trial. But things have dramatically changed in recent years, and new evidence, as we showcased in that report, new evidence has come to light. There has been a renewed effort at getting to a resentencing reevaluation. And we're about to find out in the next few minutes as to whether or not resentencing is on the table. Again, we have an entirely new audience that is just filtering in, getting ready for the press conference here from Los Angeles. Do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? The two options on your screen: yes, the case should be heard, or no, continue with life without parole. You can go interactive by voting in the poll on heyjb.live. Just open up a web browser in another tab or in your browser of choice. It's a no sign-up, one-click poll, and we will reveal the results of this in the aftermath of the press conference once we find out what the L.A. County District Attorney's Office has determined. Again, we have multiple angles. You see there that shot. In fact, I'm going to go back to that shot. Take a look at how many cameras are in the room. National and likely international press represented at the L.A. County District Attorney's Office. You would imagine that cameras for major networks, streaming networks like Netflix, are there as well. This is considered to be a massive turning point in the case should this recommendation be for resentencing. You can see Erik and Lyle's family members there, front and center. It's interesting. You would hope that they know of this decision by now, that they're not finding this out like the rest of the world. You would hope that the family has been given some advance notice. But you just don't know. Every jurisdiction, every district attorney is going to have a different, standard operating procedure, so to speak. And so they're either about to find out that resentencing is possible based on what the court decides, or that the recommendation just isn't warranted. Find out here momentarily. You can see there on the bottom of your screen that we have coming up on 400 votes. Do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? I'm really curious to look at the live results when they do come in. You can cast your vote, by the way, on heyjb.live over the course of this press conference. Perhaps this press conference you find to be enlightening, or you learn more about the story, or maybe you're reading up more about the Menendez brothers right now. Maybe you have seen the show on Netflix. Perhaps you've seen a documentary or two on a streaming platform. It'll be interesting once the press conference is over. We'll actually reveal the results of that one-click poll. Again, no sign-up required, and we'll talk about that here. We'll also be featuring your comments with HeyJB, the hashtag HeyJB in the comment section on YouTube Live and Facebook Live. So stick around in the aftermath of the press conference. We're going to break down everything that we have learned, get your reaction, and set the stage for where this goes from here for Erik and Lyle, who've been incarcerated for nearly 35 years. One of the reasons that this case received such tremendous attention back then and continues, it's just Los Angeles, happening right there in Beverly Hills with a high-profile attorney, Jose Menendez, and entertainment executive. It's just one of those cases that has permeated through the years and continued to receive just an incredible amount of attention. And there have been some fascinating cases stated as to whether or not there should be a reevaluation of the sentence. What'll be interesting is whether or not what does release look like? If the resentencing recommendation comes down here from the LA County District Attorney's Office, what are the options going forward? That's going to be really interesting as to whether or not they could be released immediately upon resentencing. Could it be in the future? It's a fascinating case. One that LawTube undoubtedly will be paying very close attention to should this head to court. But we'll find out whether or not it's heading to court here momentarily. We're getting live from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, tapping into multiple feeds from Los Angeles, California. The press conference start time was 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific.
Everyone, we'll get started in a few moments. There'll be three speakers. Today will go first. Afterwards, we're not taking a ton of questions. We've given a lot of folks sit downs the last few weeks, so we think we've covered that. But you will have a few opportunities, but not a ton. There's too many folks in here. Yes.
And I've just been informed by our newsroom that prosecutors, that the news has come out in advance of the press conference that prosecutors will be recommending that Erik and Lyle Menendez be resentenced for the 1989 killings of their parents. So news that has developed in the last 5 to 10 minutes. Really, it's interesting because the press conference was supposed to start at 4:30. It's about to start here momentarily, but the news has already leaked out to media that prosecutors will be announcing their recommendation for resentencing for, again, Erik and Lyle Menendez in the 1989 killings of their parents. that being Jose and Kitty. So that's coming out here momentarily. We have the story up right now on WFLA.com, but even before the district attorney's office could take to the podium, that news has leaked. It has been reported by multiple outlets, so we can share it here as well. I'll read it here from the Associated Press. Prosecutors will recommend Erik and Lyle Menendez to be resentenced for the 1989 killings of their parents in their family's Beverly Hills home, providing the brothers with a chance at freedom after 34 years behind bars. An official with knowledge of the decision who was not authorized to speak on the record ahead of a planned press conference confirmed that L.A. County District Attorney George Gascón will recommend resentencing for the brothers. So that is coming up here in moments, folks.
Secret, we're going to be hosting something at Engine Company after. Engine Company?
Again, for those of you just filing in on Facebook Live, on YouTube Live, WFLA.com, HeyJB.live, we're live in a lot of different places here from the Stream Center. We're about to get started with a press conference from L.A. County in California. The District Attorney's Office is expected to announce the recommendation for resentencing for Erik and Lyle Menendez in the 1989 killings of their parents in their Beverly Hills home, a story that has received a lot of attention in recent weeks, recent months, due to their family, of course, calling for resentencing to be on the table to really, in essence, call for their release. A tremendous amount of publicity in the form of a Netflix show, documentaries that have been put out. Whether or not the Menendez brothers should be released has been a focal point for a lot of social media, a lot of podcasts, a lot of network television shows, talk shows. It's been an interesting few months for the Menendez brothers, and we're about to find out, even though, of course, we now have the news that prosecutors will be recommending resentencing. We're about to find out a little bit more why. What was the reason that they recommend resentencing? Again, it still has to go to the courts for approval, and exactly what they approve and what a potential release looks like, should release be an option, that remains to be seen. But the Menendez brothers, after their initial two trials in the 90s, with the first one in the hung jury and then the second one that led to them being put in jail now for nearly 35 years, they will be back in court based on the recommendation that is put out here. Should the recommendation come to fruition, the Menendez brothers will see court one more time, and the really the focal point will be whether or not they should be released after spending nearly 35 years behind bars. It looks like the press conference is probably going to be getting started here momentarily. The news has made its way out to multiple networks, multiple press agencies. We're live here in the Stream Center breaking it all down. Again, as a reminder, on HeyJB.live, we're running our interactive poll. We're asking you, do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? We've received more than 500 votes so far. Ask anyone in the comment section. It's really quick. You can do it in 5 seconds. It's a no sign up, one click or one tap poll. You can do it in another tab or just open up a browser on another device, whatever it may be. Just go to www.heyjb.live. You click on either yes or no, the two options that we have displayed on the screen, then you come right back here. You could probably do it right. You'd probably have time before the actual press conference gets started. And then we're going to be revealing the results and looking at the results in the aftermath of the press conference once we hear from prosecutors as to their decision and why their decision was made. You can see we've gotten about 521 votes. We'll see how high we can get the vote count up. The more votes that we have, of course, the more representative the poll is of our viewers across multiple platforms. You can also submit a comment while you're over there, by the way. You don't have to, but you can. And then that comment will get loaded into my queue, and I'll spotlight some comments in the aftermath of the presser. A bit of a curious delay. We're now 17 minutes past the half hour. Not sure if there's been a holdup for any particular reason. I mean, clearly news has made it out that they will be recommending resentencing. One more time, an official with knowledge of the decision who spoke to the Associated Press, who was not authorized to speak on the record to the AP, confirming that the L.A. County District Attorney will be recommending resentencing for Erik and Lyle Menendez. As we're getting prepared to start, I can't help but wonder if this case had originally happened in 2024, what the outcome might have been like. Would the outcome have been the same, or would there, again, we're talking about a completely different era, and we're talking about sexual abuse at the hands of the Menendez brothers' father, Jose, and what a trial would look like in 2024 versus in the 90s. You know, not only has, there been such advancements when it comes to examinations of crime scenes and the understanding of heinous crimes like sexual abuse, but just how victims are treated these days, it's just different now than it was in the 90s. I mean, clearly this is going to be a case that if it does wind up back in court and the Menendez brothers have an opportunity for release, it's going to be after previous runs in court back in the 90s. However, I can't help but wonder if the case had originated in the year 2024, what the outcome might have been like. I've got the YouTube comment section up. I'm gonna look if anyone chimes in on that, because we'll be talking a little bit more about this and reviewing a little bit more of your comments in the aftermath of the presser. Not sure when the presser is going to begin. We haven't given an update. They've done multiple mic checks. They've come up to the podium and said it'll be beginning here momentarily, but we haven't really heard much in the aftermath of that. The time's now 4:50 Eastern. We're live from the Stream Center in Tampa with the feeds coming in from Los Angeles, California. Paulie submitting this comment to heyjb.live, voting in the poll, and then submitting a comment there. We'll be looking at some of the comments that have come in on our website. Paulie saying, I remember this like it was yesterday. Were you following this back then? Who remembers it? In the comment section, let us know. Do you remember the Menendez case? By the way, I'm just seeing that our comment feature wasn't accessible to everybody. Only a few comments made it through. That's because it wasn't turned on across all devices. Now everybody who votes on heyjb.live, underneath the poll voting section, there is a section, optional section where you can leave a comment. So for those who voted and are looking for an opportunity to have their comment on screen, we're going to be putting up a lot of comments on screen from heyjb.live. So that comment section is now available regardless of device. So you can go over to heyjb.live, vote on yes or no on whether or not the Menendez brothers deserve to be resentenced or the opportunity to be resentenced. And then underneath it now, you should see a comment section where you can optionally leave a comment, and that will get added to my queue here in the Stream Center. I'll look at some of the comments, and we'll bring up a bunch of them over the course of the live stream, including right now, including as we're waiting. I mean, might as well throw up some comments while we're waiting. We don't know how much longer this is going to be. So I'll continue to spotlight comments as they come in from the Stream Center. I've seen a few people like Angel dropping this on YouTube, and Angel dropped this into the website, www.heyjb.live. If they can free Gypsy Rose. I've seen a lot of comments just like this one. People comparing the two. This is interesting. BJ is asking, is there a chance that the news of resentencing is fake news? I highly doubt it. They would not have leaked out that news in advance of the press conference just to dupe people. I just don't think that that's a realistic chance. I mean, it's not, the recommendation isn't official until it's on paper. And even before that, until they announce it here at the press conference. But again, multiple press outlets confirming through sources speaking to those with knowledge in the LA County District Attorney's Office that the recommendation will be for resentencing for the Menendez brothers. Kimberly says on heyjb.live after casting her vote, they have suffered enough. Give them a chance at the rest of their life. They lived in prison before they were even locked up. Jonathan on heyjb.live. They should be released ASAP. They have paid their debt to society for the killings. It's time that we recognize the pain they went through that led to these unfortunate circumstances. This is an interesting comment. Amanda says, would have been a different outcome if it were female victims rather than male victims. That's why, Amanda, it's interesting. I was talking a little bit earlier. You could make the argument that female victim versus male victim, that the optics would have been different and the outcome of the case would have been skewed one way or the other, would have been different. I can't help but wonder how, if the murders had happened in 2023, 2024, and the Menendez brothers had stated their case in today's world, in today's America, that they were suffering sexual abuse at the hands of their father. My goodness, can you imagine the uproar that would exist today? I mean, obviously we have social media, we have the internet. We didn't really have that as much of a lane of communication back in the 90s, but yeah, there's so much has changed over the last 3+ decades. There's certainly a lot of different arguments, and I think those arguments are really at the foundation of why resentencing is on the table. But really, it's going to come down to evidence. Bottom line is it's going to come down to evidence. What evidence exists that shows that the Menendez brothers, that part of the reason that they had murdered their parents was sexual abuse? Sherry, what is taking so long? I'm not sure. At this point, they might be just waiting for the top of the hour to hit the local news airwaves at the top of the hour. Not entirely. Sometimes you'll hear about that where they'll just they're like, all right, we're up to 4:56. Might as well just wait a few more minutes and hit at the top of the hour. The time now is 4:59, by the way, Eastern. Laura says if the family advocates for them, free them. Laura, I understand. I understand what you're getting at, but at the same time, if every family in America advocated for the release of their loved one behind bars for murder, that'd be a lot of murderers on the street. So it can't just be, oh, the family wants him out, let him out. It's got to be rooted in evidence. I understand what you're saying. The family is knows them best and is clearly advocating for them and for their release. But you can't just because the family's upset doesn't mean you release two brothers that have been locked up for murdering their parents, murdering their fellow family members. It's not really how it works. But I understand what you're saying. I'd be curious if we can get to 1,000 votes in our poll before the end of the press conference. Again, for those just joining, go to heyjb.live to vote in our no sign-up, one-click poll. Do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? The two options that exist are yes, the case should be heard, no, life without parole, and then optionally underneath you can submit your name for comment. We got some folks. This is the secondary camera angle, by the way. The more folks are continuing to file in. There might have been a pre-press conference meeting just to talk about logistics, messaging, and the nonstop media spree that will follow this presser. Richard says I'll come back to that, Richard. Hold on. Richard. There it is. We live in a different time. These guys are abused. Let them go. Let's comment. Cheryl, I remember watching the trial and crying along with the brothers. I believe them then, and I believe them now. These are coming in literally at this very second on heyjb.live. Sandy, yes, release them. They have been through enough. We know so much about abuse now. Time served. Let them have some kind of normalcy now. I'm going to be honest, folks. I see the results for the poll, but I haven't seen one comment yet. People actually writing in a comment where they believe the Menendez brothers should stay locked up. I haven't seen it yet. They're probably out there and they're scrolling in really quickly, but I have not actually seen one of those comments on heyjb.live just yet. Alejandro, I hope they heal and live a happy and better life. You know what? When we get to 1,000 votes, I might if we get to 1,000 votes, we won't wait till the end of the press conference. This has been a lengthy wait, a wait of well more than what we were expecting. So if we get to 1,000 votes on the poll, I will animate the results on screen. Again, heyjb.live is where you can vote in the no sign up poll. One click, and then come right back here. Tonya, the brothers suffered from abuse and should deserve a new hearing. Cynthia, they have paid enough. CC, they deserve to be free. They did their time. Big capital letters I'm seeing from multiple people. Hannah and Marta, free them. The time is now 5:03. So my theory about maybe waiting to the top of the hour and going right at 5 o'clock, that appears to be unfounded. Again, I haven't. Oh, okay. Well, let's go to YouTube. Hooligans says, me, I have, throw away the key. So I think Hooligans here is responding to when I said I haven't seen a comment yet in support of keeping them locked up. But Hooligans is saying throw away the key. So there's one. I can't put up the comment because it has to either come into heyjb.live or include hashtag heyjb, but one of our commenters by the name of Mario said, all right, yeah, sure, let them out, but how would you feel if they lived next to you? How would you feel if the Menendez brothers were your neighbor? Mario is saying, in the comment section, understand how there are a lot of people out there that are calling for the release of the Menendez brothers, but what if it's in your neighborhood where you send your kids to school? How would you feel about brothers who murdered their parents living in the home next to yours or on the same street as you, is what Mario was saying with the comment. I'd be curious to see what people respond with. We have received more than 1,000 votes, and let's, with that, look at the live results. We asked in our heyjb.live interactive poll, do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? My goodness. I hadn't looked in a few minutes. It's even more one-sided than it was 5 minutes ago. 93% of our social media poll saying, yes, the case should be heard. Only 7% saying, no, life without parole. More folks are filing in here. The door is opening. It clearly is picking up here, and we are likely about to get that press conference. You can continue to vote and comment along on heyjb.live, and we will break down what we have learned in the aftermath of the press conference. Again, we have backup feeds here should there be any problem with the signal from LA, but the press conference is starting now.
If we have some family members stand on this side as well, that would be great. And just the closer, the better.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. And before I begin speaking, I want to also introduce some other people that are here with me, and I hope I'm pronouncing the names right because I've seen handwritten part of it. But I have Ana Maria Barat, Jose Menendez, Jose Menendez and niece Karen Vandermolen, and Kitty's niece. They're all here with us. Also with us here is Brock Lunsford. He's the Assistant Head Deputy for the Post-Litigation Conviction Unit, and Nancy Cervier, who is the Deputy District Attorney in charge of the Resentencing Unit. Let me begin by telling you that this is a case where we've had many people in this office spend a great deal of time reviewing the case. I have to tell you unequivocally that we don't have a universal agreement. There are people in the office that strongly believe that the Menendez brothers should stay in prison the rest of their life, and they do not believe that they were molested. And there are people in the office that strongly believe that they should be released immediately and that they were in fact molested. I have to tell you that after a very careful review of all the arguments that were made for people on both sides of this equation, I came to a place where I believe that under the law, resentencing is appropriate, and I am going to recommend that to a court tomorrow. What that means in this particular case is that we're going to recommend to the court that the life without the possibility of parole be removed and that they will be sentenced for murder, which, because there are 2 murders involved, that will be 50 years to life. However, because of their age, under the law, since they were under 26 years of age at the time that these crimes occurred, they will be eligible for parole immediately. The teams that have worked on this, on the resentencing side of it, have spent literally probably hundreds of hours by now looking at this case. These cases were originally presented on the habeas side of it, which I'll explain in a moment what that is, last year, and then the request for a prosecutor-initiated resentencing occurred earlier this year. And there have been people in this office working in these cases from the very beginning, as well as many other cases that we have. The reason why I'm here today and why I came in front of all of you about 10 days ago is because there was a more recent documentary about the case that again brought a tremendous amount of public attention. And we know there have been other documentaries, so this is not the first, this is a more recent one. And frankly, our office got flooded with requests for information. And even though this case was already scheduled to be heard in late November, I decided to move this forward because, quite frankly, we did not have enough resources to handle all the requests. And one of the things that I thrive to do in this office is to be very transparent in everything that we do. In this case, we review the prison files. You have to understand that the way the process works, when you're talking about a resentencing under the law, it really focuses not necessarily on what the original crimes were, but it focuses on, has the person been rehabilitated, number one, and number two, can they be released safely into the community? Under that rubric, since I've been in office, we have resentenced over 300 people, including 28 for murder. Only 4 have reoffended. If that was a regular recidivism rate in this country, we would be the safest nation in the world, but we know that it's not. In fact, somewhere between 40 and 50% of the people that go to prison reoffend and get rearrested. And that's why we have so many problems. However, when you look at the case of the Menendez brothers, you see 2 very young people. One was 19 and the other was 21 when they committed these horrible acts. And I want to underline, they were horrible acts. There is no excuse for murder. And I will never imply that what we're doing here is to excuse that behavior. Because even if you get abused, the right path is to call the police, seek help. But I understand also how sometimes people get desperate. We often see women, for instance, that have been battered for years, and sometimes they will murder their abuser out of desperation. And I do believe that the brothers were subjected to a tremendous amount of dysfunction in the home and molestation. But they went to prison for life without the possibility of parole. which meant that certainly under the law at that time, they had no hopes of ever getting out. They could have done what many other people do, which is basically said, you know what, I'm here for the rest of my life, so I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to misbehave, I'm going to join gangs, I'm going to live the life of the prison. But they never did that. To the contrary, even though they didn't think that they would ever be left free, they engaged in a different journey. A journey of redemption and a journey of rehabilitation. And often the people that begin their journey of rehabilitation and redemption in prison is often very internal. And what they do, and one of our lawyers pointed out this today, is usually the path is people try to further their education, do things for self-improvement, which the brothers have done, by the way. But it's more unique or less usual, I guess, when people not only do that, but they also begin to engage in ways to make life for others better. And in this case, the brothers have been doing so for a very long time, creating groups to deal with how to address untreated trauma, creating groups to deal with other inmates that have physical disabilities and may be treated differently. Even in one case, Lyle negotiating for other inmates as to the conditions that they live under during prison. And all this was done by two young people, now they're not as young, that had no hopes of ever getting out of prison. They have been in prison for nearly 35 years. I believe that they have paid their debt to society, and the system provides a vehicle for their case to be reviewed by a parole board, and if the parole concurs with my assessment, and it will be their decision, they will be released accordingly. I must underline, however, this case will be filed in court tomorrow. The final decision will be made by the judge. The court has to agree with my conclusion that they deserve to be resentenced. It is very possible that there may be members of this office that will be present in court opposing the resentencing. And they have a right to do so. And we encourage those that disagree with us to speak, and the court is the appropriate place to do it. We certainly feel we're very sure not only that the brothers have rehabilitated and that they will be safe to be reintegrated in our society, but that they have paid their dues, not only for the crimes that they committed, but because of all the other things they have done to improve the life of so many others. So, again, we will be filing for resentencing tomorrow. We're seeking that they would be sentenced to life with the possibility of parole, as opposed to life without the possibility of parole, which is they currently have. That means that they would have 50 years to life because there were two murders, but because of the age upon which they were convicted, under 26, under current law, that means they're eligible for youthful parole. I think there is also important to have some introspection today, because I think that often, for cultural reasons, we don't believe victims of sexual assault, whether they're women or whether they're men. We saw in our first trial, which, by the way, they were tried twice. The first trial, hung. I mean, a jury could not come to a conclusion, and in fact, about half of the jury wanted to convict him of manslaughter, which, if that were have been the case, they would have been off prison a long time ago. And then there was a second trial, and then they were convicted of murder with special circumstances, which led to the life without the possibility of parole. But it's salient to understand that our own implicit and sometimes explicit bias around sexual abuse and sexual assaults often leads us to severe injustices in our community. And I want to speak to those that are victims of sexual assault now, whether you're a man or a woman. Know that we're here for you. If you're a victim of sexual assault in this community, and by that we're talking about LA County, not just LA City, you can come for help. Whether you're prepared to prosecute or not, we will be here for you. We have services for you. And if you're prepared to move forward with the prosecution, we will evaluate it as we do any other case. And if we believe that the evidence is there to present a credible case in front of a jury that can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, we would proceed accordingly. You do not have to suffer alone. You don't have to keep it to yourself. And help is here unconditionally. I'm going to say a few words in Spanish because I know there's tremendous amount of interest from the Spanish media, and I know that there are going to be other speakers today, and then we're going to open it up for questions. Primero que nada, quiero dar las gracias a todos por estar aquí hoy. Estamos hablando del caso de los hermanos Menéndez. Este fue un caso donde dos hermanos, uno de 19 y uno de 21 años, asesinaron a sus padres más de 3 décadas atrás. Estos muchachos fueron condenados por asesinato y llevan en la prisión alrededor de 35 años. Este fue un caso que tuvo mucha atención pública cuando sucedió y indudablemente tiene mucha atención pública hoy cuando vemos esta habitación como está llena. La razón por la que nosotros estamos buscando que la Corte reevalúe la sentencia original es la siguiente. Bajo la ley de California, cuando una persona es acusada de un crimen, ese crimen puede ser reevaluado si la persona lleva muchos años en la cárcel o la prisión y enseña que se ha rehabilitado y que puede ser reintegrado en la comunidad sin causar peligro para el resto de nosotros. En el caso de los hermanos Menéndez, nosotros hemos revisado el caso y creemos, número 1, que se han rehabilitado y número 2, que pueden ser reintegrados en la comunidad sin causar peligro para el resto de nosotros. Es importante notar que este es un caso de dos muchachos que tenían 19 y 21 años, que probablemente fueron no solamente acosados por su familia, pero posiblemente también fueron molestados sexualmente. Aunque no hay excusa ninguna para los crímenes que ellos cometieron, reconocemos también que habían ciertas condiciones que pueden haber creado esta situación. Desde que están en la prisión, ellos han demostrado con sus acciones y sus palabras que iban a hacer todo lo que era posible para rehabilitarse. No solamente ellos hicieron cosas para mejorar su vida personalmente, pero también tomaron parte en muchos programas y crearon programas para ayudar a otros prisioneros. Hicieron todo esto durante un tiempo donde ellos no creían que iban a salir de la cárcel por el resto de su vida, porque su sentencia era de vida sin la posibilidad de salir de la cárcel. Lo que estamos haciendo hoy bajo la ley de California, vamos a hacer una petición a la Corte a que reevalúe esa sentencia y que lo vuelva a sentenciar por asesinato, pero con la posibilidad de salir con libertad condicional. En el caso de ellos, porque son dos asesinatos, serían 50 años o por vida, pero con la posibilidad de ser prohibido la oportunidad de salir con condiciones. Bajo la ley, cuando el crimen se cometió y la persona tenía menos de 26 años cuando lo cometió, esa persona puede ser evaluada inmediatamente para que su sentencia sea revisada y que se le pueda dar otra sentencia. Bajo las condiciones de cómo ellos se han portado en la prisión y la evidencia de que están rehabilitados y de que pueden ser reintegrados en nuestra comunidad, es muy posible que ellos sean permitidos salir a la calle de nuevo, pero esa decisión estará con el sistema de prisiones y no con nuestra oficina. Legalmente lo que nosotros vamos a hacer mañana es presentar una petición a la Corte. La Corte es la que toma la última decisión y la Corte puede acordar con nosotros o no, pero creemos que bajo la ley la petición que estamos haciendo está bien fundada y creo que esta petición espero que sea permitida. Ahora voy a pasar para que otras personas hablen y después podemos tomar sus preguntas. Ana María, you're going to talk next? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Maria Baralt, and I'm the niece of Jose Menendez. Erik and Menendez are my cousins. I would also like to acknowledge the other family members here, some standing, some seated. Joan Vandermolen is here, Kitty's sister, as well as Diane Vandermolen Hernandez, Kitty's niece. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Today is a day filled with hope for our family. We are here because District Attorney Gascón has taken a brave and necessary step forward by recommending a resentencing for Lyle and Erik. The DA's decision reflects the truth that was hidden for so long, and I am grateful for his leadership in making this choice. We stand united in our hope and gratitude. Together we can make sure that Erik and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you to District Attorney George Gascón for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that the truth will finally be heard and that Lyle and Erik can begin to heal from the trauma of their past. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ana Maria.
Yeah.
I believe Jose Menendez is going to say a few words.
This is the niece of Kitty
You're gonna
Menendez,
say, I'm sorry.
Joan Vandermolen.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for coming. We are here today because District Attorney Gascón has taken a brave and compassionate step forward by recommending resentencing for my cousins Erik and Lyle, and we wish to offer our deepest gratitude to DA Gascón. This decision is not just a legal matter. It is a recognition of the abuse my cousins endured, and we are grateful for the DA's leadership in putting justice over politics. We know this wasn't an easy decision, but is the right one. This is about truth, justice, and healing. It is time for Lyle and Erik to come home. And I ask all of you to join us in this fight for justice. We stand united in our hope and in our gratitude. Together we can make sure that Erik and Lyle receive the justice they deserve and finally come home. Thank you again to District Attorney George Gascón for his courage and leadership. This step gives us all hope that truth will finally be heard and Erik and Lyle can begin to heal from the horrors of their past. We hope this will also shed light and increase awareness and help others who have been victimized by sexual violence. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are grateful for everyone's support.
Is there anyone else speaking?
No, that's it.
Okay. Okay, and I apologize. I'm reading notes here and I'm trying to understand all the notes. Yes, ma'am.
Can you explain, so you go tomorrow, you file a case for resentencing, then what happens after? Are the brothers going to be there tomorrow, and when is the role of the parole board going to come in?
Right, and you know what? I'm going to actually have the people that are handling the case walk you through all of it. The brothers will not be there tomorrow. The role of parole board comes later, but Nancy, why don't you walk everybody through?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll file our...
Say your name, ma'am, your name and your title.
My name is Nancy Thaberge. I'm the deputy in charge of the resentencing unit. This is Brock Lunsford, assistant head deputy of the post-conviction litigation division. So what will happen is tomorrow we will file the actual petition requesting resentencing with the legal arguments and accompanying exhibits as to why we think it's appropriate. It's just a filing. No one's going to physically be in the courtroom. From there, we'll also serve the defense with our motion and our paperwork so that they'll have their copies. And from there, we will coordinate with the defense to set up a court date with the court so that the petition can be heard. Now, whether or not that's a setting or a hearing will be decided between us and the defense and the court once everybody gets an idea of what we've filed. Then from there at the hearing, the defense can either decide to have the defendants, the Menendez brothers, physically brought into court. They can ask that the individuals appear by video or audio WebEx, a kind of a Zoom participation, which we all kind of adapted to because of COVID. And then from there, we will do the hearing and submit all the written and legal and oral arguments and any evidence that needs to be admitted at the time, and then the court will rule at that point. But we don't have that court date yet because we're just starting the process tomorrow. But it's our intention to have that go forward before the habeas, because if the judge grants it, that may impact the defense's decision to proceed on the habeas. So we're gonna try it just as a matter of economy of time to stack it one before the other.
Now, have the brothers found out about this?
No, this was...
No, this is actually the...
Some signal breakup here from the courthouse. Both feeds went down at the same time, so wondering if they're having some bandwidth issues from the courthouse itself. It would appear that they are answering the question as if to say that the Menendez brothers have not yet been informed of this decision.
Over that, that's correct.
Oh, but here it is. Let's go back. Again, signal freezing on multiple feeds out of the courthouse, so it might be a bandwidth issue out of this particular room. Standing by for it to resume. And until we get the signal back, I'll hop in here, folks, and say hello. JB here with you from the Stream Center in Tampa, Florida, learning about prosecutors recommending resentencing for the Menendez brothers, Erik and Lyle, who could be one step closer to being free.
Including 28
Looks like the
for
signal's
murder.
back. Let's listen.
And we will continue to resentence people in the future. And that's all I can tell you.
But DA, question, but
Yes,
how
sir.
is your bid for
Excuse me,
re-election?
please. You're interrupting.
Everyone's interrupted. I'm just
No.
wondering how your bid for re-election.
Yes, please. Yes.
Could the brothers be home by Thanksgiving?
I don't know the answer to that.
Why did you decide not to go with the reduced voluntary manslaughter?
That was part of the process that I was still going through up until a couple of hours ago. I don't believe that a manslaughter would have been the appropriate charge given the premeditation that was involved in the murders. I believe that these were clearly murders that were premeditated. Now the motivation, that's where differences of opinion come up, but I didn't think it would be appropriate to go all the way down to manslaughter.
DA,
Yes, ma'am.
has your bid for re-election impacted
Would you
your
please
decision?
stop? I am not going to talk about re-election, okay?
Okay. So
If you want to talk to re-election, go outside, we'll
But
talk
has
later.
your bid-
Please.
Relax.
It's a fair question.
No, it's not.
It is a
I'm sorry, you're interrupting, sir.
Be respectful.
Please.
¿Qué va a pasar mañana después de que presenten en la corte el documento?
Pues depende, como estaba explicando la abogada, la encargada de esta unidad, la Corte probablemente va a señalar otro día donde los dos, la defensa y nosotros podemos ir y habrá una evaluación de la evidencia. Si hay alguien que se opone a esta moción que estamos, proceso que estamos iniciando, también la Corte va a poder oír todo eso y la Corte toma la decisión final. Yes, ma'am. Yes, because we're going to make a decision one way or the other. It's just a question what the decision was going to be.
Just giving
Yes.
you a timeline. If you are no longer in office, what happens to this case? Could a potential successor undo what you're about to file?
I don't think so. Once it's filed, it's filed. It's up to the court to take it from there.
You mentioned.
Yes, I'm sorry.
In a parole situation, obviously you've got a policy of not sending DAs to those. Since you're obviously supporting the push for release here, how would that work with people from post-litigation? We send some big donors from the parole board to argue for their release? Or
No. We have a policy that we only send victim services advocate if the victim or the victim's family wants that support. We don't send lawyers to our parole boards to relitigate a case. The parole board is fully aware of what the initial crime was, the crime that led to the conviction. Their work is primarily to evaluate whether they're rehabilitated and safe to be released, and that will be the way here.
Can you break down the timeline for us? Can we expect a hearing by the end of the year?
Nancy, we don't.
I'm hoping to get it on calendar, depending on the defense preparedness. I'd like to see it go to hearing probably within the next 30 to 45 days at the most. There's not much to argue.
Okay, there's one more question, please, but related to the case, not to elections. If you want to talk about elections, we'll do that. Yes, sir.
What would you like to say right now to Erik and Lyle Menendez?
What we like to say to them, and it's we, because it's not I made the final decision, obviously, but we have a whole team that worked on it. We have a family here that wants to be reunited, is that we appreciate what they did while they were in prison. While I disapprove of the way they handle their abuse, we hope that they not only have learned, which appears that they have, but that if they get reintegrated into our community, that they continue to do public good. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That is Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascón speaking in support of the Menendez brothers, saying that they have paid their debt to society, setting the stage for a legal process that could lead to their release after spending nearly 35 years in prison for the murders of their parents. Back here with you in the Stream Center, folks. A day that the Menendez brothers, I'm sure, have prayed for some time. You can see now that family members of Erik and Lyle are going to be approached for endless interviews, as you would imagine. There's going to be considerable... the ripple effect from this is going to be massive. As interviews are done, as a more comprehensive understanding of the process takes shape, and as really all the documentaries and shows and the mass media machine that has surrounded the Menendez brothers, especially in recent months, grapples with this most recent bit of news that the Menendez brothers are on the path to a potential parole hearing should the judge agree with Gascón's recommendation for life in prison with the possibility of parole being the sentence that is ultimately reached. So back here in the Stream Center, if there's any additional press conferences or interviews that pop up here in the Stream Center, I'm paying attention here in the Stream Center to that monitor all the way in the corner. You can't really see it. But if there's any exterior, press conferences that pop up, interviews that pop up with family members, I'll punch it up here for you live. Some notes. Man, it was so interesting to hear George Gascón talk about how there are people in his office that are very, very much on the side of immediate release, and then that there are a considerable amount of people in his office that have petitioned for them, staying in prison for the remainder of their lives. The recommendation would be making them eligible for parole 50 years to life, but due to their age of being underneath the age of 26, that would be what's called youthful parole, and they would be eligible for parole immediately. So the way that this sounds to me is that the judge is going to determine whether or not a change of sentence is warranted. If a change in sentence is warranted, and if it's changed to 50 years to life with the possibility of parole, and then, of course, they qualify as being youthful offenders for youthful parole, what will happen is that they will go before a parole board that would ultimately decide whether or not they are eligible for parole and what their release back into society would ultimately look like. It sounds as if there's considerable momentum towards that happening. You did hear there at the end, there was one reporter or one person in the room, not sure if it was a journalist or not, asking about whether or not this pertains at all to George Gascón's attempts for re-election. You can make that's getting into politics. We're not going to get into politics. We're just going to stay on track here with the Menendez brothers. But what was also fascinating to hear from Gascón, we're about to take your comments, by the way, but I just want to go through my notes, is that he highlighted the documentaries that have come out, and the most recent one that has been on Netflix, as being part of their evaluation. We're talking about documentaries progressing so far in the true crime space that they get put on the radars of even the Los Angeles County District Attorney. I think it's wild that we have gotten to a point where documentaries can change the outcome of massive cases like this. Well, I think it's fair to say that documentaries in large part have been responsible for shedding a light or showcasing a case and getting the attention of prosecutors, of attorneys. But for him to stand up there and say and give credit to the documentary filmmakers who have been shedding light on this case, and for it to be in this massive of a moment, speaks volumes as to how much weight, how much power, how much influence documentary filmmakers have when they partner with a streaming service like Netflix, Hulu, Max, Prime, whatever it may be, when you can reach millions upon millions of people and bring attention to new undiscovered evidence, new testimony, whatever it may be, and put together a more comprehensive, modern approach to a case that is perhaps decades old. My goodness, it can sway, it can get the attention of someone as prominent as the LA County District Attorney, and can even sway opinions in those law offices as well. Absolutely mind-blowing. Gascón mentioned that there was that based on his review of the evidence, that there was tremendous dysfunction and molestation in the Menendez household, and basically has stated that they have paid their debt to society, that they have been victims of Jose Menendez, and now that their opportunity to be released into the world as free men exists. We have another feed coming in here. Let's listen in.
Was attached to the letter. However, Erik writes about different events like the hiring of a tennis coach that I know happened in November of '88. Erik also writes about a Christmas party that Jose and Kitty had for all the employees at Live Entertainment. I've interviewed those employees. I have photos of the party, so I know those are events that really happened.
To people who say, why didn't the cousin bring up this letter when he was alive?
What I believe is that Erik Menendez and his cousin Andy Cano wrote hundreds of letters to each other. And obviously, if he remembered a letter that he received when he was 15 years old, he would have brought that letter to the defense attorneys when the brothers were on trial. Obviously, he didn't realize he had that letter. And his mother, Marta Cano, told me that there were dozens of other letters upstairs in her attic, and it was mid-July of 2018. And I tried to search through her attic, and it was about 140 degrees, and I left. I couldn't stand the heat after 10 minutes. So there could be more letters that are out there.
Bob, when you look at someone who's been involved with the brothers and has followed their story and has spoken with Lyle considerable times, what is the future that you foresee when they do finally find freedom?
I believe Erik and Lyle Menendez will continue to be of service after they are released from prison. I know they've been valuable members of their inmate community. We heard DA Gascón talk about all the different things they're doing to help fellow inmates, and I believe they will find a way to do that work when they are outside of prison, and they will be assets to any community that they're part of.
But finally, speaking of assets, is there a way for them to recoup the money that they were set to inherit?
No, the Menendez estate is completely gone. The media reported originally that it was $14 million. In reality, it was about $6 million. It was heavily leveraged by real estate, and both the defense attorneys in the first trial were paid $1 million each.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Are you going to be here? You might have time for these guys. I'll be in touch.
So tapping into that feed, I believe that was from KNBC. I want to get to some of the comments that are coming in. You can start punching them in now to heyjb.live. That's really, I'll also take hashtag heyjb on YouTube Live as well, but really focusing in on any comments coming into www.heyjb.live. The results of our poll, once again, folks, I mean, mind-blowingly one-sided. 93% were holding at that number. Do you believe the Menendez brothers deserve the opportunity for resentencing? 93% saying yes, the case should be heard. That is an eye-popping number for two individuals that have been convicted of murdering their parents. Everyone understands the optics, right? We're talking about two brothers right there who murdered their mom and dad, and 35 years or so after they've been in prison, 93% of our audience believes that they should get an opportunity for release. That's, yeah, it speaks volumes to how this case has changed in the court of public opinion over the years. And also, too, how sex abuse victims are viewed and believed in a different capacity than they were in the 90s. It's just different now than it was back then. All right, let's get to some of the other comments that are coming in. You can use hashtag HAB on YouTube, but if you really want to get my attention, if you really want to stick on my screen, you go to heyjb.live. Heather, at the end of the day, they committed murder on two people, but they have served more than enough time for all they endured. They have been rehabilitated. Let them free. I think this, Heather, I think of all the comments that I have seen, this is the one that is the most representative of our comment section, the microcosm of our comment section, right there. Yes, they murdered two people, but they've served enough time. They've been rehabilitated. Let them free. The one thing that this doesn't have in the comment, Heather, is that, that Gascón and countless others believe that they were victims of sexual abuse at the hands of their father, and that is the reason as to why, that has to be part of the conversation and part of the rationale for release via parole. Dino is watching from Croatia. Wow, freedom, says Dino. Just wanted to spotlight a comment to show that this is absolutely an international case. No doubt about it. To Mackenzie in her comment section, my opinion doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It's all about representing our comment section, and our comment section is extremely one-sided for resentencing. So it's not about what I think. So it sounds as if, as far as where this goes from here, I'll read some more comments as they come in. But it sounds as if the petition gets filed tomorrow. There's not going to be much fanfare around that. It's just paperwork that goes in. The judge then determines sort of the appropriate format for how the case should be heard. And then upon a hearing, the Menendez brothers can appear in person, appear virtually, or not appear at all. That will be an interesting day, no doubt. I also thought it was interesting that Gascón said that this was going to get that this was on the docket for November, by the end of late November, but that he pushed it up as a result of, he said, I have it here, that his office was flooded with correspondence from people who stated their case in this case. Megan on HeyJB.live. The Menendez brothers deserve freedom. There they are back then versus their mugshots more recently. I'll read a few more comments before we wrap up our live stream here on WFLA Now and on HeyJB.live. What do we got, folks? You can submit your comment to HeyJB.live, or you can use hashtag HeyJB on YouTube to have your comment featured, and then I just want to give everybody the opportunity to have their voice heard before we wrap up our live stream. Melody says, thank you for covering this, of course. And I'll tell you what, any more live stream opportunities that we get with the Menendez brothers, if they're in court, we'll do our very best to continue covering it. We know it's a story that people really, really have. Look, whether it's the documentary or the show, whatever it may be, people are fascinated by it and want to know where it goes from here. Karina says on HeyJB.live, the two people who were supposed to protect him, supposed to protect them, did not. It is time for them to be rehabilitated. They have served their time. Avery, I see your comment. I can't spotlight it because it's got to follow one of our rules, which is it comes in via our website, HeyJB.live, or it includes hashtag HeyJB, but I see your comment. I think it's very interesting. Interesting. Ethan is watching from South Africa, or says, I'm from South Africa. These two men have been through 35 years of trauma. No one knows how they got treated in the cells when they first went to jail. But honestly, they have served their sentence. Let them free, and I'm 100% sure they will carry on doing good in society as they're doing in jail. Free these men. Nana Barb, hey JB, do you think the brothers could be out for the holidays? I'd be shocked. Nana. That sounds quick. I mean, Christmas is 2 months from tomorrow. Really tonight. Christmas Eve is really what people, Christmas Eve is 2 months from today. For everything to be overturned in 60 days? Man, I'd be really curious to know what Emily Baker and Peter Tragos, my two go-to attorneys on YouTube, what they would say. And whether or not that's even a thought. Is it even possible to get them out in 60 days? And would it even be a consideration from the judge? Or really the parole board, because if I understand correctly, it would go from the court itself to the parole board. So that's a whole lot that would have to get done in a 60-day time frame to get them out in time for Christmas. I'm sure that there are people out there that would see that as a feel-good sort of conclusion to what has been a year of tremendous publicity for the Menendez brothers. However, there are still people, including in Gascón's office, that believes that they should be locked up for the remainder of their lives, that they are two brothers who murdered mom and dad. But could it be expedited just for the sake of the holidays? It's a very interesting question. Emily, Peter, if you're watching, I'd be curious to know what you have to say. With that, folks, that's going to do it for me here in the Stream Center. Really appreciate all your time. Future live streams as needed, as warranted. You can also, of course, go to heyjb.live to submit ideas for future live stream topics. Let me know. We cover a lot of different stories here from the Stream Centers. Have a lot of different shows from the Stream Center. So we'll do our very best to cover as many stories as possible. But to tell you the truth, guys, there's an election coming up in early November. We're really focused on getting through the election and covering the election through and through. In the aftermath of the election, there will be a lot more. Oh, yeah, you know what, Spruce, you're right. It is Gascón. It is Gascón. I don't know why I kept mispronouncing his last name. I just kept getting caught up in the accent. There's an accent on his name, and I keep mispronouncing it, and the accent is throwing me off. I am not bilingual, and it's for a reason. I have enough difficulty with the English language than I do to even comprehend another language. So that's going to do it for us here in the Stream Center. A lot more live streams, of course, in the days, weeks, months ahead. Thank you so much for being with us here. After the stream is over, I'll put up a form on heyjb.live for you to be able to submit topics that you think we should cover here from the Stream Center, bring on guests, and kind of go in depth with. And in the meantime, we'll be getting ready for what is going to be, of course, a historic election here in the United States. WFLA.com is your local election headquarters. Will be focused very much on the races in Florida and beyond. But that does it for us here in the Stream Center. To everybody watching, both here in the United States and beyond, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a good day, folks.